All right, let's head over to the Arizona Diamondbacks here. We'll start right off at the beginning with a big trade with the Toronto Blue Jays. We're going to see Dalton Varsho go on over to Toronto. Very big trade. Gabriel Moreno comes over. I think it was an interesting trade. I think it was a great trade for both teams. You could honestly give the nod to Arizona for getting the better bet of the deal because they traded, and I don't know how you feel about this, but they traded some surplus for a very big need. Now, you could say that Toronto had the surplus in the catching department. However, that is a top prospect. That's a generational prospect that you usually don't see traded too often at that age. I'd love to hear your thought process, and not only on the Toronto side, but what Arizona's getting back, what Moreno.
Yeah. First of all, I mean, as a Toronto Blue Jays fan, it was one of those where you're like, oh, a big thing, and then you're like, wait a minute, hold on, because we're giving up quite a bit here, right? And for Blue Jays fans, they're not necessarily as familiar with Dalton Varsho, so that there's a little bit of kind of thinking that you gave up too much. But what I found interesting was Blue Jays general manager Ross Atkins talking about that the Diamondbacks pushed for for big league talent, I should say, not necessarily a number, but they were pushing for big league talent so that they could win ball games. And that's, if I'm a fan of the Diamondbacks, that's what I want to hear. We traded Dalton Varsho as an excellent player and all of that stuff, but they've got outfield depth to spare. And honestly, an outfield that's looking really good, young and exciting for a long time, right? But I would want to hear that, yes, we want to win games. That's what this trade is about. And whether or not it'll help will be interesting, right? Because Toronto felt that they, had to part with one catcher at some point this winter. And it turns out they gave up the most future value in this trade, right? And so it's one of those trades that kind of works out for both teams. The excuse me, the Diamondbacks get Lourdes Gurriel, who is a bat that they, I think, are excited about, not necessarily because he's another outfielder, but because he's a different type of bat. He'll grind out at bats, and he can poke the ball the other way or whatever have you, right? So there's a lot to like about that. And his biggest, I guess, wart, if you will, was his defense, and they don't really need him to do that. And then, of course, Gabriel Moreno is, just like the top catching prospect in all of baseball, and he's going to be a stud. And he has positional versatility as well. He can play a little bit of outfield if you need him to. So I really like this trade for both sides, but I also, obviously as a Blue Jays guy, I kind of focus on that end of it, but I do like it for the Diamondbacks as well, not because of the players themselves, but what I guess it means for their fans and what it signals that, it's not a complete tear down rebuild type of thing, which is, good news, obviously, for them.
Now you have Moreno, who arguably is the top catching prospect in all of baseball. And then you have Corbin Carroll with that outfield, amazing outfield that we're talking about. Baseball America just came out with their top 100 just the beginning of this week, and they put him at number 2, just behind Gunnar Henderson of the Baltimore Orioles. I think you could really make that decision either way. I think you could we might see MLB Pipeline come out with Carroll at number 1 for that aspect. However, I do think those are the top 2 easily, and then you can make that true argument for 3, 4, 5, and beyond. However, Corbin Carroll, I mean, we saw just a little bit of a glimpse last year. I think we're going to be able to see a full season of him. I don't think we are ever going to see him back in the minors unless it's for any kind of rehab assignment. He is before we get into anything else for the Diamondbacks, this is going to be the most exciting thing that this team is going to be able to enjoy all season long, is watching the growth of Corbin Carroll. I think he is going to be so fun to watch. There are a lot of young players on this team. I know you just got rid of Varsho, who was still kind of a younger player and a player that you built up and found a lot of love fans. But I mean, you have a plethora of prospects coming up. There's a lot to be excited about. And, you got better in my mind. I think Arizona got better with all of and I know we just talked about all the additions San Diego got, but look at all the departures that happened inside this division total, right? We talk about Justin Turner's gone, Cody Bellinger's gone, Brandon Belt's gone, all these players. I'm not even getting to the very tippy top of this, but there's just so many, Trey Turner, right? All of those players make Arizona better. And let's go back to the other portion. This is the first year that they only got to play 13 games against each other now.
Yeah.
So that's only going to help this team even more. I'm really excited for Arizona. I think they are on a very nice progression up. Like if I'm talking stocks here, It's going like this. It's up. It's on the rise for the Diamondbacks. I think this trade is a really good position for them to really settle in, and we can see the Diamondbacks back in contention. And I think in 2 years, and like with a really solid chance if they continue to do things right.
Yeah, but I think a lot of that will have to do with how Ketel Marte bounces back, and then of course even like the Diamondbacks solved their third base issue with Evan Longoria. That's a kind of an underrated move this offseason, but I think it has the potential to pay off rather well for them. On a 1-year deal, so. And I think you've said this like 8 billion times already on this podcast. There's a 1-year deal is not a bad deal ever. And I like that. They've got Zach Gallen, I believe, still 27, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a lot to like about this team. Ketel Marte, I think, is the centerpiece of their fortunes.
Biggest question mark too, because of what are we going to get from him? Are we going to get 2019 form where he deserved every single penny of that extension, or are we going to see what we saw the last couple seasons where he started to decline a little bit? I don't know if we're going to ever get that 2019 form, but we got to get really close to it if we want to get Arizona back in contention, especially with as tough as a division as they are. I mean, right now, you talk about, let's put the Rockies out of there right now, because the Rockies, we don't know what they're doing. They're in la la land. We'll get to that in just a moment. However, the Giants, you can never really count them out because they're not afraid to spend money. We saw that in the offseason. They just decided to take a business route and walk away from that because of medicals. They still went and got some players. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then obviously the Padres and Dodgers, as of right now, we know that they're not going anywhere. Arizona has a very tough task, even with the fact they got to play with these teams a lot less. Yes, there is an extra wild card, but all those teams are still battling for that extra wild card, except the one who finishes at the top of the division, right? So a really tough shot for Arizona to get in playoff contention this year. However, I do think that they are on the rise to get that done. And that's why I'm going to go first on this one. And I know I usually throw it at you, but Arizona last year finished 74-88. I'm taking the over. I think they're over 74 wins. I don't think it's by a lot, but I think they're over 74 wins. I'm going to say like 78. I really like what Arizona's doing, and I think they're going to continue to rise.
Yeah, I can get on board with that. I don't see them taking a step backward. Let's put it that way, right? So I think if Ketel Marte can bounce back and have a better season than even he had last year, even like if he can't be the 2019 version, if he can have a season like he had just last year, a little bit better, which he's projected at, by the way, in case we were wondering, I think they're in good shape. So yeah, I'll take the over as well.